She was the ultimate embodiment of elegance, a style icon who inspired millions. But beneath the poise and glamour, Audrey Hepburn's life was anything but perfect. She endured war, heartbreak, and the crushing pressure of living up to an image of perfection created by Hollywood. How did a girl born into tragedy become a global symbol of hope and grace? This is the untold story of Audrey Hepburn, a tale of beauty, resilience, and the relentless conflicts that shaped her. Audrey Kathleen Rustin, later known to the world as Audrey Hepburn, was born in Brussels to a Dutch baroness and a British father. On paper, this might have sounded like a fairy tale start: wealth, status, and a bright future. But the first cracks in that fairy tale appeared when her father, Joseph, walked out on the family. She was just 6 years old. Years later, Audrey recalled, "It was the most traumatic event of my life. This heartbreak left a scar that never fully healed. Friends noticed that throughout her adolescence. Audrey longed for a sense of stability she'd lost with her father's departure. That longing for approval and affection became her first real conflict, an emotional wound shaping the rest of her life. Not long after, a greater conflict, one that engulfed the entire continent, descended upon Audrey's world: World War II. Her mother moved the family to the Netherlands, believing it would be safer than staying in England. That decision turned tragically ironic when the Nazis invaded, and Audrey found herself in the crosshairs of a brutal occupation. Rations ran scarce. By 1944, famine swept across the Netherlands. It was survival under extreme deprivation. Food was so limited that Audrey, like many others, resorted to eating tulip bulbs, anything to stave off hunger. She reportedly suffered from anemia, respiratory issues, and edema due to malnutrition. Much later, Audrey admitted, "I know what it's like to be hungry. I know what it is to be without food." But even in these grim circumstances, her spirit shone through. She studied ballet in clandestine classes and performed secret dance recitals to raise money for the Dutch resistance. Imagine the stakes. At any moment, Nazi soldiers could burst in. An arrest, or worse, would be all too real a possibility. Yet, Audrey continued, quietly defying tyranny in her own graceful way. By war's end, Audrey was a teenager, marked by both trauma and hope. She poured herself into ballet, devoting long hours to her dream of becoming a professional dancer. But the lingering effects of malnutrition had weakened her body. She was simply too frail to endure the rigors of the dance world at the highest level. This heartbreaking moment became the death of a dream. After all she had endured, her father's abandonment, wartime starvation, ballet was her beacon, her chance at a normal life. Now that too was slipping away. Audrey's instructors, while recognizing her talent, conceded that her health challenges were insurmountable. It was devastating news, but one that nudged her toward a different stage. She began taking small acting roles in London's West End. Producers were struck by her unique presence. She didn't fit the mold of a curvy post-war pinup girl. She was slender, almost willowy, with that expressive face that could convey vulnerability and dignity all at once. This caught the attention of filmmakers, and Audrey found herself cast in minor parts, slowly gaining notice. It was a subtle start for the woman who would one day command the world's attention. The real turning point came in the early 1950s while shooting a small film in Monte Carlo. Audrey was discovered by novelist Colette, who insisted the young actress was perfect for the title role in the stage adaptation of Gigi. Around the same time, she auditioned and won the lead in Roman Holiday 1953 alongside Gregory Peck. Audrey's life was about to change at a dizzying pace, and that kind of meteoric rise always comes at a cost. Studio executives hesitated. She was an unknown, and some felt she lacked the Hollywood bombshell appeal of the era. But Gregory Peck saw something special. He reportedly told producers, "Mark my words, this girl is going to win the Oscar." And he was right. Audrey's portrayal of the runaway princess, Princess Anne, captured hearts worldwide. Critics praised her innocence, her emotional depth, her understated style. She won the Academy Award for Best Actress, a fairy tale outcome for a young woman who'd recently been scraping by in post war Europe. Yet, success often breeds its own form of conflict. Overnight, Audrey became a sensation. She was declared the new standard of beauty and refinement, the fashion inspiration for women everywhere. From the iconic short hair to the princess like poise, it all crystallized into a brand, Audrey Hepburn. But behind that polished image lay the shy, somewhat insecure person who once said, "I never thought I was beautiful. I just felt different." With Roman Holiday came fame and a multi-picture contract with studios eager to profit from her fresh appeal. The name Audrey Hepburn suddenly meant style, dignity, and gentleness. Designers like Hubert de Givenchy clamored to dress her. Articles praised her as a new kind of star, graceful, natural, almost regal. But that adoration carried a dark side. Audrey felt the relentless pressure to be perfect. The studio wanted her thin, regal figure to remain unchanged. Tabloids obsessed over her weight, speculating about her diet. Some even spread rumors of an eating disorder. In truth, her petite physique was largely the result of her childhood malnutrition. Yet the pressure from Hollywood's beauty standards didn't let up, forcing Audrey to perpetually manage how she looked, moved, and spoke. Even as she became a top box office draw, starring in Sabrina 1954, Funny Face 1957, and Breakfast at Tiffany's 1961, she grappled with that internal conflict. Am I really what they say I am? Or am I still the girl who hid from bombs in a Dutch cellar? In 1954, she married actor Mel Ferrer. At first, people thought of them as a Hollywood power couple. She, a rising star, he, a charismatic actor with directing aspirations. But behind closed doors, the marriage wasn't idyllic. Friends noticed Mel's controlling streak and Audrey's tendency to concede to keep the peace. Her insecurities, rooted in childhood abandonment, often manifested in a profound need to please. After 14 years and a series of miscarriages that left Audrey deeply saddened, they divorced. She later reflected, "I wanted so desperately to have a family." This heartbreak over childbearing difficulties only deepened her yearning for a stable home life. Her second marriage to Italian psychiatrist Andrea Dotti seemed at first to offer just that. She retreated from Hollywood to live in Rome, focusing on raising their son, Luca. But rumors of Andrea's infidelity took their toll. Another divorce followed. 2 marriages, 2 heartbreaks, and still that familiar pattern. Audrey, the gentle soul, giving everything she had, only to discover that love can be as fragile as any other dream. By the late 1960s, Audrey stepped back from her relentless film schedule. She wanted to be a present mother, and the grind of the industry no longer appealed. She'd also grown wary of the perpetual scrutiny, both from the press and the public. But a new chapter was about to open, one that would define her legacy as much as any film role ever could. In the 1980s, Audrey Hepburn became a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador, a role she embraced with all her heart. She visited some of the most impoverished regions in Africa, Asia, and Latin America, witnessing famine, disease, and the dire conditions children faced. She once said, "I've been given so much. I feel it's my duty to give back." It was her return to the heartbreak of hunger she had once known. On her UNICEF missions, Audrey saw reflections of her own wartime past, young faces hollowed by starvation. Rather than breaking her spirit, it galvanized her compassion. She became a tireless advocate for children's welfare, standing in front of world leaders to demand aid. The press, which once celebrated her for red carpet glamour, now captured images of a woman in field missions, cradling malnourished children and rallying global attention. The 1990s brought an unexpected and tragic twist. Audrey was diagnosed with a rare form of abdominal cancer. Though physically fragile, she maintained a quiet resolve. According to her close friend and longtime companion, Robert Wolders, Audrey endured her illness with a stoic grace. She refused to be defined by the disease. just as she had refused to be defined solely by fame. She passed away on January 20th, 1993, at her home in Switzerland, surrounded by family. The world mourned not just the loss of a beloved actress, but of a humanitarian whose empathy touched millions. The New York Times called her a symbol of eternal grace, both on and off the screen. So, why do we still search for Audrey Hepburn? Why does her name continue to evoke an almost mystical reverence? Because beneath the poise and couture dresses was a woman shaped by profound challenges. She carried the heartbreak of a father's departure, which fueled her lifelong search for security. She endured the hardships of Nazi occupation and famine, which gave her an unshakable empathy for the hungry. She was forced to let go of her passion for ballet, finding her way into acting, but always carrying the memory of what might have been. Her overnight success brought immense pressure, forcing her body to embody an impossible ideal of perfection. Her personal life was marked by failed marriages, miscarriages, and betrayal, all of which tested her longing for a stable, loving home. Later in life, she confronted global suffering, which gave her existence a deeper purpose and brought her face to face with echoes of her own war trauma. And even in her final years, as she battled illness, she faced it with unwavering grace, leaving an enduring legacy, not just in cinema, but in the world's humanitarian conscience. This tapestry of hardship and triumph is what keeps Audrey's legacy so potent. She wasn't just born graceful, she became graceful through adversity. Her life stands as proof that elegance is more than appearance. It's an attitude forged in the fires of conflict. Each time she encountered heartbreak or disappointment, she made a choice to continue with kindness, empathy, and dignity. In her later years, Audrey famously said, "People, even more than things, have to be restored, renewed, revived, reclaimed, and redeemed. Never throw out anyone." Those weren't just words on a page. They were a credo she'd earned the hard way. Having lived through war, heartbreak, and the burdens of stardom, she knew what it meant to be cast aside and refused to do that to anyone else. So, when you see her luminous eyes in Roman Holiday, or watch her gliding effortlessly across the screen in Breakfast at Tiffany's, remember the hidden layers beneath that perfect posture. She was a survivor with a cause, a dreamer who faced crushing disappointment, a global star who yearned for simple human warmth. That's the real Audrey Hepburn story. Conflict after conflict, resolved by resilience and an unwavering belief in compassion. Thank you for watching. And remember Audrey's enduring lesson that true beauty blossoms from empathy, kindness, and the courage to keep going when life is at its harshest. If the story resonated with you, feel free to check out the channel. There you'll find more stories where I talk about the challenging life journeys of celebrities.